Hello, Sun Devil fans. Brad Denny with 3TV, CBS 5, and the Speak of the Devils podcast here. Coming at you right after ASU wrapped up week 1 of fall camp on another blistering Saturday. It was the first practice in full pads, but the practice session was kind of overshadowed on the field by some visitors off the field, most notably ASU Athletic Director Ray Anderson and University President Dr. Michael Crow. Now, of course, the big news is that ASU is headed east to be a member of the Big 12 Conference as the Pac-12 continues its inevitable and slow death. But ASU has a bright future in the Big 12. Joe and I will kind of go into much greater detail on this move, the kind of implications, our thoughts of it on Tuesday's episode, where we're also going to recap the first week of fall camp in some pretty great depth. But Dr. Crow and Ray Anderson showed up at practice, kind of gave us an impromptu media availability. Some key points. I mean, I'll bring you the full audio here in just one moment, but some key points right off the top. Dr. Crow did say that ASU will be getting a full media share. So there, of course, have been some questions as to whether it would be phased in, as some like Oregon, Washington, they're getting kind of a lower share when they're moved to the Big 10, which will increase over time. Dr. Crow says ASU right off the bat is going to get a full share. Ray Anderson mentioned that divisions would be likely. Now, of course, you're having a conference that stretches, from the Valley all the way to Morgantown and Orlando and Cincinnati and a lot of the other places in the flyover states. So it's going to be a lot of travel costs, and so it looks like that there will be some divisions, as common sense might prevail there. One of the interesting things is that Dr. Crow said the status of the Rose Bowl game itself being owned by the Pac-12 and Big 10 conferences is kind of up in the air, and he seemed like he maybe had some shade to throw at the media's way. And that also yesterday at a 7 a.m. conference call for the Pac-12 presidents, there were 2 Pac-12 schools that no-showed. And as he talked about, and you'll hear in a moment, he says that the move to the Big 12 from ASU's perspective wasn't purely financial. It was more about viability. And he'll explain exactly what he was thinking there. And also will provide some details on the proposed Apple media deal with the Pac-12 that just simply wasn't cutting it with the existing schools. So that's why we are in the state that we're in now, with ASU, U of A, and Utah joining former Pac-12 member Colorado in the Big 12. So here's what Ray Anderson and Dr. Michael Crow had to say earlier today.
When Colorado decided to leave the conference, was that already a warning sign of sorts of what the media deal the Pac-12 was or was not going to be?
There were a lot of forces at work, including the overlords of the media empires that are out there that were driving a lot of this. And so the Colorado departure was really an indication of the fact that there was great instability in the media market, and it created an unstable moment. Yes.
Could you walk us through, Dr. Crow, the last several days from your vantage point? What happened Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Lots of energy drinks. So what's been going on is that a number of us, including me, as some of you report, have been strongly committed to the maintenance of the Pac-12 conference as a thing. A West Coast conference of schools that have been around for over 100 years, playing together in a regional environment, committed to similar objectives about student-athlete success and so forth and so on. And so along the way, what has happened the last few days is that we were offered a media contract by the Apple Corporation, which was a technological 23rd century Star Trek thing of really unbelievable capability that we were very interested in, ASU was very interested in. Digitization of all ASU football games, all men's basketball games, and all women's basketball games instantly. Available anywhere in the world at a touch of the button from any device, anywhere. Digitally then manipulable by the watcher, both during the game and between multiple games at the same time, as well as usable by athletes for recruitment and so forth and so on after the games as an archived thing. And so we thought that there was some risk but huge opportunity. So several of the schools were committed to that, but it created another destabilizing moment of sort of tradition versus this modern thing. So a lot of back and forth. The Pac-12's council, the CEOs, the presidents, and the chancellors met many times during the week with a pivotal meeting yesterday that led to ASU and others joining the Big 12.
Was it primarily the financial disparity between the revenue and the media rights revenue between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 that was the deciding thing?
No. And so it's often the case in the media that the media thinks that the measurement of the success of our program is the media contract and the share per school. Well, the media contract is a fraction of our revenue relative to ASU athletics, even relative to football athletics and other athletics. And so we've got lots of revenue sources. We were very interested at ASU on finding a way to connect to more people and so forth, but we have to be in a viable conference to do that. And once Oregon and Washington decided to go to the Big Ten, the conference was no longer viable. And so viability meant you can't be in a non-viable position for more than a few hours in our mind. So we resolved that.
So was the Washington and Oregon departures the kind of the final straw?
Yesterday morning at 7 a.m. was another called meeting of the Pac-12 presidents, and some schools didn't show up. So you might know that then, therefore, the conference was no longer viable.
Can you say how many didn't show up?
2.
How much responsibility do the two of you feel for the destruction of the Pac-12, or do you feel like it was ripped from you by other people?
Well, that's an interesting question. And so how do we feel about the destruction of the Pac-12, and what do we feel about our responsibility for that? We were the stalwarts fighting for the Pac-12 until the last ditch, I'm telling you.
I can reiterate that. The destruction of the Pac-12 is a very bad description. We had nothing to do with it. We were trying to save it and stayed in the trenches as long as we could until it became clear that it was no longer in our control. So I take offense, very frankly, to the question, but I hope you get your answer. We were there to the last moment when it became clear that in the best interest of ASU and our student athletes, it was time to make a decision affirmatively and move.
So at that moment, just to be clear, so there was no media option at that moment. So the media option, which we preferred, was to go in a new technological trajectory where individual athletes and recruits and families could engage and fans could engage anywhere, anytime. Especially younger people coming up, it's a whole new world about television, and cable television's going in different kinds of directions. And so, you have 2 teams not present and no media contract, you got to act. So.
Can you discuss some of the benefits that you feel the Big 12 will bring you guys?
The fantastic thing about the Big 12, and I'll let Ray comment on this, is unbelievable athletic competition with concentrations of athletes in Texas and Oklahoma and Utah and other places where we can have great connections in a regional area. So we see it as a regional conference with a couple of exceptions. We see it as valuable from a competitive perspective. We are being admitted as a full founding member, as the original 8 of the Big 8. I'm a former Big 8 athlete. I was a javelin thrower at Iowa State. I went to all those schools, Stillwater, Manhattan, Lawrence, all those places back when Missouri was in and Nebraska was in, Boulder was in, by bus. All athletes traveled by bus 50 years ago. But we are a full member. All the Pac-12 schools going in are coming in as full members of the AAU. We were just elected to the AAU, the elite research universities of the United States, and so there's only one other AAU member that's from an academic perspective. So the 4 new schools going in, it's an exciting moment for the Big 12. It's an exciting moment for us athletically.
There's no question. Our biggest concern from day one with all of this, particularly when it became clear that we had to explore options, was what was in the best interest of the health and welfare of our student athletes.
And then talk about that relative to other options we had.
Because the other options would have taken us across country on trips that we think.
I also went to Syracuse, and what did you say?
I'm not going to say publicly what I said about Syracuse, although I wasn't excited about taking our soccer team to Syracuse in the middle of fall season if we were going to go to the ACC.
He's afraid of the cold.
So it made a lot more sense for the student-athlete experience and competitive to get into the Big 12. Preserve BYU and Utah, Colorado, and then get a chance to go into that Texas market where we got 4 new universities. We recruit down there. I think Kenny in particular has shown that he can recruit down there. And now it's even more in our bailiwick. And so from the student-athlete experience competitively, and this just is not about football. And so when you think about the other sports, and how much more efficient and, very frankly, competitively, how much better it's going to be. Very honestly, with USC and UCLA gone, and Washington and Oregon, that wasn't a tough decision in terms of what was best for our student athletes, in my view.
So when I met yesterday for the first time in the first discussion that we had with the Big 12, which was 10:30 yesterday morning with the commissioner and three of the presidents, President Baylor, the president of Iowa State, and the president of Kansas, the focus was on how to build a solid, tradition-based, sports-focused, athlete success-focused conference of many, many schools. This is all new. The conferences all used to be small, 8 schools. The Pac-8 was the Pac before that, and only 4 schools. And so now we're going into more and more and more. So we were focused on how do we make this work for our athletes? How do we make this work? And sort of the question about, is this all driven by resources? If it was all driven by resources, we wouldn't be in this business because there aren't enough resources coming to us from all the things that we're doing to cover all of our costs in athletics, because we have many, many, many sports that are very expensive and generate no revenue. So all the focus, though, is on the revenue sports, men's basketball and football. We have a new revenue sport, hockey. We have a semi-revenue sport, baseball. So,
Growing.
What's the future of the Rose Bowl?
That's a conundrum, because the Rose Bowl, not as a facility but as an event, is owned by the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. And so you might consider asking even people in the media business, why did they not want that to be maintained?
Dr. Crow, when you said that you're a full member, does that mean a full media share?
Yeah.
Dr. Crow, is there any scenario which, had Washington and Oregon remained committed to signing a grant of rights with the Pac, that Arizona and ASU would have split up?
No.
And why do you can you elaborate on that?
Well, one, Arizona and Arizona State decided we wouldn't split up under any circumstance. So you can ask President Robbins about that. But we believe that we're strange fraternal twins.
And at what point did you say that was determined in finality?
Before we went into any uncertainty, we were together.
Dave Hickey and I have been talking about staying together since the first time. The thought that there would be additional defections from the conference after UCLA and USC.
I've spoken to President Robbins 100 times in the last 10 days.
What would you say to fans, alumni who are kind of eulogizing the Pac and saying this is regionality dying and kind of killing the spirit of college sports in that respect?
I share that view. And so we're moving to a slightly bigger region. And so, what we want to do for take our players over here, our student athletes over here, we want their academic, athletic lives to be as successful as possible, and we have to find a way to do that. And this is the way that we have to go. But I mean, there are some big, huge issues relative to the design of college sports right now.
And Ray, when you talk about, obviously the Olympic sports, I know scheduling for football, basketball, men's and women's, but the other Olympic sports, are there going to be, I don't want to say a limit, but like for the schools that are farther away, whether it's Florida, West Virginia, like
divisions.
Yeah, you're gonna try to, in the Olympic sports, go to divisions, and probably do that in football as well. For travel, regionalization, it still makes sense, but it really makes sense for the Olympic sports. And so you might imagine our selfish interest is that if that keeps us with the game.
We're not giving you a remote office in Morgantown?
I promise I'm not going to Morgantown. I'm going to sign that to Gene Boyd. He can go to Morgantown. But send me to Texas and the rivalry with Arizona and start a new one with BYU and Utah and Colorado. Yeah. That's where a lot of our Olympics.
So look at where we are. So we have 2 schools in Utah, 2 schools in Arizona. We have the Colorado, and then we've got the schools in Texas. That's quite a nice little group of schools right there. So I don't know how that's going to end up, but that's a nice little regional group of schools. So.
Did you guys ever think of any other conference? I think you kind of referred to that before. Was there ever any thought or talk of any other conference?
You can imagine that there was talk about everything. Ivy League turned us down. We really thought hard for it. I came from the Ivy League, so
and I went to law school at Harvard, so we thought maybe it made some
I was
sense.
a professor at Columbia, and he was a Harvard law graduate, so we used every kind of influence, and they said no.
But it's a fair question, certainly, over the course of all these months. You have to understand that you got to examine all the options. And so we had, at least at some level, conversations with, you name the conference.
There are lots of people trying to figure this out, but everybody's trying to figure it out from slightly different views. So Florida State apparently is out, thinking, can they build a privately funded college football network? Well, error.
Anything else?
Yeah, how significant are the travel costs going to be compared to what they have been?
To be determined. to be determined. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Buses are good.
Yeah, buses are good. But in my mind, I'm thinking Texas or Oregon State or Pullman, Washington. You know what I mean? Oregon or even Seattle. I think there's some potential cost savings to be had depending on how you put it all together.
That's going to be in everyone's interest. No university wants to spend unnecessary money or have people travel extra hours or days to get back and forth to games. And so regionality then gets redesigned in these super conferences like the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the SEC.
I know you guys have enough on your plate, but any idea about Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal and their futures?
Fantastic athletic programs at all four of those schools. I mean, Oregon State and Washington State punch above their weight. I mean, it's unbelievable. Oregon State's ranked in the top 25 in football going into this season. Stanford is the winningest athletic school in the history of the United States across all disciplines. Ray was a Stanford athlete in 2 sports, varsity lettered in 2 sports. We don't know. I mean, we're very interested in being helpful in any way that we can.
A lot of Big 12 schools have similar revenue, these publicly reported, but much fewer sports. So what do you think about that, Ray? The challenges presented by that?
Yeah, Ray, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, we didn't get into this business of adding sports to cut sports. At least I did not.
Yeah.
And so we have every intention to continue all of our sports in the Big 12. And remember, all of our sports aren't sponsored in the Pac-12. So, for instance, in water polo, we got Indiana as part of the conference that plays in the Pac-12. So we'll pick and choose our spots, but all of our student athletes will be able to play. And very frankly, some folks say, are you going to continue to play the teams in the remaining in the Pac-12, USC, UCLA,
hopefully,
Cal, Stanford? Absolutely, particularly in the Olympic sports, because that's a great experience, and the student athlete welfare is also a big factor. So
there's a lot of really competitive teams in California. We're interested in playing all of them. You know, UC Davis and UC Irvine and other schools that are up and coming, and the state college like Long Beach State, the Dirtbags over there. All those folks are really on the rise. So,
but the Big 12 sponsors 23 varsity sports. So I think for us, beach volleyball and lacrosse and hockey, but no other Pac-12 has hockey.
We're in a new conference in hockey.
We're in a new conference in hockey, as you know, so we're good there. But the Pac-12 doesn't sponsor all the sports. And when we added women's lacrosse, we added the 16 to make them a championship level qualifying league. We'll do that in lacrosse and beach volleyball, wherever we have to. Our student athletes will have a really good experience. And this will not detract from it. In fact, I can tell you, because we've talked to our coaches, a number of them, particularly in the Olympic sports, they couldn't be more pleased. Bobby Hurley couldn't be more pleased. Kenny couldn't be more pleased. Our volleyball coach couldn't be more pleased. Our wrestling coach couldn't be more pleased. Our golfing coaches couldn't be more pleased. And on and on. This was a good move in terms of the Olympic sports, and we're looking forward to it.
Also of note was a comment that Kenny Dillingham made to us after practice, in which he described the move to the Big 12 as exciting, but also something that had been on his radar since he took over, and that we've talked about a lot of times over the last 7-8 months with the big increase in focus on recruiting in the state of Texas. That was a reflection of the idea that, and the forethought that Kenny had in terms of a potential conference move. So here's what Kenny had to say exactly about the move to the Big 12.
It's exciting. I mean, college football is changing. I compare it to a technology business, right? It changes every 6 months. There's new rules. You have to adapt, right? I'd like to say I had a plan. Since, if you've noticed how we've been recruiting that region of the country since I've been here, I knew that was an option, and we made sure we diversified where we were recruiting in this class. That way we were ready for whatever decision was made.
How helpful is it to have coaches like Carrington and Sample to have that experience recruiting in that region?
Huge. I mean, that was a big reason we brought them in, was their football acumen, but then their relationships in the region, and knowing that there was a chance this could happen, right? We wanted to make sure that we had a plan regardless of where we were in, which is why I was never worried, because I knew we had a good plan regardless. I know this institution, we're a top 5 city, right? We're one of the largest enrollments in the country. We're a top 20 public academics institution. We're a top 40 overall institution. We have more Fulbright scholars than Stanford. I mean, I was never worried about Arizona State. I'm worried about our football team. President Crow, our administration, they're going to make sure Arizona State's always okay.
You've made a strong push recruiting in Texas. You have a staff that's kind of built to recruit in Texas. Is this move benefit you guys from that standpoint?
I definitely believe it allows us to, go into different homes that maybe didn't want to come play for us because the region we would play away games. Now us traveling, to Texas, traveling to the Oklahomas. Oh, we need to recruit Oklahoma now. That's a place that I, in my past, signed 5 guys out of when I was at Memphis. So we definitely have to get a little bit more aggressive in that region of the country. But make no beans about it. I mean, we're going to recruit Arizona. We still have to recruit California. If we look at where we need to recruit, I think what we're recruiting right now is kind of the staple. And may we have the opportunity to recruit a few more people in the Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana region, yes, and we'll take advantage of that.
All right, let's talk a little bit of football as to what happened today at practice. It was, of course, the first session in full pads, and they started off with some individual position group work, then went to some perimeter work drills and some quick hits out there and some smoke screens and such. Getting some work there. Then in team tempo session, Jaden Rashada, who had a pretty solid session on the day, took the first series, and he had a nice quick hit to Xavier Guillory on the outside, a nice cross over the middle to Jalen Conyers. And Trenton Bourguet then had the next series, and the highlight there was a nice little out to Jake Smith. And kind of just, it was a day that the quarterbacks I thought had a pretty solid day, and Jaden Rashada especially had I thought a really good day. One of the passes that he threw, a touchdown to Gio Sanders, I thought was probably the best throw that he's had as a Sun Devil. There was some really good coverage on the play, but with some pinpoint accuracy in the back of the end zone, maybe about a 20, 25, 30-yard throw. Just absolute precision from Jaden Rashada and kind of bouncing back from an uneven couple of days. One of the more fun moments of practice was near the end when the third-team offense was jogging out there with Jaden Rashada taking the helm at the quarterback spot. Kenny Dillingham gave the play calling responsibilities to Trenton Bourguet and Drew Pyne, while handing over the defensive play calling responsibilities to Jordan Clark and to linebacker Trey Brown. And Bourguet and Pyne called a hell of a drive. And you hear Trenton Bourguet talk about that a little bit later on. But Jaden led that team down there and looked pretty good doing so. So as I mentioned, a really good session in which Jaden, I thought, bounced back pretty well. Pyne continues a strong first week of fall camp as well as Bourguet. So I do think that's a battle that has really tightened up in the last several days. After Bourguet, I think, had a nice lead heading out of spring ball, but that race is definitely kind of caught up, and so we'll see what week 2 brings, and as the team heads up to Camp Tonazona at the end of next week. And also during the main event, some pretty good showings by some defenders playing receiver. Jordan Clark had a great touchdown catch in the main event session with wide receiver Andre Johnson in coverage, but the highlight was D. Ford, one of the fall camp standouts so far. The transfer from Austin P was blanketed in coverage by Gio Sanders, but Drew Pyne threw a perfect ball. I mean, you can find the video on my Twitter at BDenny29 or the Speak of the Devils Instagram account as well. A tremendous ball as Ford laid out in the back of the end zone, made the catch, held on, touchdown. And Gio Sanders quote tweeted me after practice and just said, "Hey, it's a hell of a ball, Drew. I mean, you have to tip your cap at something that good." So after practice, all 3 quarterbacks were made available to us in the media. So let's start things off with Drew Pyne.
In what areas would you say that you've made strides from the spring camp?
Yeah, I think all summer, I've just studied the playbook as hard as I can. I know the offense like the back of my hand. Just being able to go out there, if someone's not lined up right, get them in the right position. If someone needs a question on a route, you tell them. But also checking plays. I'm studying fronts, I'm studying boxes, I'm studying, all that stuff, every coverages, everything. Just knowing the offense has really made me be more comfortable out here on this field.
Is there more freedom to check things line of scrimmage here versus typical?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's just a credit to Coach Dillingham and the trust he puts in us, but also that comes with hard work and hard coaching that, goes on in the facility of watching film. And, we really dive into all this stuff. So, that freedom that he gives us is all because he teaches us, every single bit.
How do you feel your chemistry with the receivers? I know everybody obviously getting the reps, you guys are battling, but how do you feel the chemistry with the receivers has grown?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we've thrown a lot. We threw all offseason. So, those guys work really hard. I'm literally watching them do up-downs right now after practice, after running a whole entire week of camp. So, those guys care. Coach Samples holds them to a high standard. And, we do routes versus air every day, and we do it, with a lot of detail to try to, perfect that at the end of the day in teams. So, I think the chemistry with receivers is definitely gotten a lot better, but also, those guys are just incredible athletes. I'm just so happy that those are the guys catching the ball. So.
It looked like today you were.
Pretty big play today.
Who's that?
Jordan on switching sides from DB to receiver.
Oh, Jordan Clark. Oh yeah. He and D Ford. Yeah. I tell you, I don't really like throwing at DBs, but I guess I did today. So.
It looked like you were celebrating with your fellow quarterbacks, when they made a good throw today. What's it like being in the competition, but also supporting, the guys in your room?
Yeah, no doubt. I think that we've grown as a room a lot from spring. I think that the tempo that we play at with this offense and all the detail that we play with, takes a lot of hard work and a lot of studying and a lot of communication on the field. And being able to see us grow not only from spring, but day to day and during this camp, throughout this whole first week was amazing. And to see Jaden come and learn and throw that touchdown over there, I was fired up for him. So just things like that. Just we're all part of one working group, and we're all just trying to win, and we work really hard. So why not celebrate? Yeah, it's nice having those guys blocking for me and say they love me. I love you too. So.
Drew, what do you know about Camp T? Have you been there before? What are you looking forward to?
As long as there's some grass and football, I'll be good. So it doesn't really make a difference to me. But it'll be a great time to bond with the guys. No cell service. You're sleeping in dorms. I'll be hearing all the linemen snoring. It is what it is. But when you're in the fourth quarter and you're on the goal line and you need an extra yard against USC week 4, we're gonna remember being in those punts in 100 degrees and going through all that stuff with no cell service, waking up every day, going through camp. So, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's just we're going there to get better. So.
Then the next quarterback made available to us was Trenton Bourguet.
Is there any sense of kind of relief getting the news that the conference thing has been settled?
For me, I wasn't really worried about that. I was really worried about just, practices and this fall camp, and, that's up to, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Michael Crow about what they do. But for me, it's just, getting worried about this fall camp and this season.
Where's some of their favorite play calls in that last drive with Jaden?
Woo, there was a couple good ones. We had a great run. I called the same thing, same formation, kind of wanted to do that play action. He made a great ball to the corner. He had the home run post or the pylon post to Coben. But he made a great read, great throw. I wish we would have capped it off with a touchdown, but it was a lot of fun making those game calls and really feeling like a coach out there.
Trenton, what do you learn as a play caller versus being just the quarterback?
I think a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to get a play call in, to get your personnel in, what players you want on the field. So it's 40 seconds. So there's a lot to think about, and but just trying to think of one step ahead. If we complete this pass, what are we going to do? If we get stopped, if we get a holding call, are we going to go 12 personnel, 11 personnel? So I think it's a lot harder than people think, but it was definitely a lot of fun.
How do you feel this first week of fall camp is kind of built off what you were able to do in spring?
Yeah, I think, obviously, the first couple of days it's going to be, kind of getting, out of the wrinkles and everything like that. But finally getting back on the field, we're, 20-something days away from our first game. So obviously the first couple of days weren't as, smooth as we wanted to. But offensively, I feel like we've picked it up the last couple of days. And our defense, is one of the best defenses, we're going to see all season. So really just getting a great look from them and pushing each other.
As far as you're competing with the other quarterbacks, but it looks like you're also supporting them too. And how does that dynamic work, the competition, but also being in the room together?
Most definitely. I think we have a lot of good quarterbacks, just on the field, but also, off the field. We always, are communicating with what we see on the field. We're hanging out in the locker room. It's not like there's, some diversity in the locker room between all the guys. We have a young guy in Jaden. We have a couple older guys in Drew and Jacob that have, been at other college universities, and me, I've been at ASU, and we just added Hunter. So I think, there's a good camaraderie, within the group, within the QB room, and at the end of the day, the best man's going to win the job.
What's the number one most important individual thing for you to improve on in the next 2 weeks?
I would just say being more consistent, just getting a better understanding of my play call, why is the coach calling this play, where are my reads, is there any checks I need to be alert to, but that just takes time, that takes reps, throwing to some guys that I haven't thrown to before in the spring. Jake Smith's obviously healthy and he's fast as can be, so just making sure we're on the same page, and I think the more reps we get, the better we'll be.
Can you talk about some of those reads that you're looking at? Is there any reads specifically that you feel like you're recognizing more during this first week?
Yeah, I would say we just had a counter to Jaden. He scored, and I was telling my coach I felt like pre-snap I kind of could play the play out before it even happened. So knowing this is a great look what we want, we have numbers to the boundary. So if we can pull, kick out, pull and lead through, Jaden might go untouched, and Andre did a great job on the corner. He ran him off and then still blocked him in the end zone. So I think just getting a better understanding of the feel for the offense, and like I said, when you can get a good understanding of what's going to happen pre-snap, it makes it a lot easier and a lot fun.
What's your level of comfort with calling audible and your checks when you're up at the line of scrimmage?
Definitely more comfortable now. Obviously there's always room for improvement, and I think that's one thing that Bo did something great last year at Oregon is if Coach Dillingham called a play but it wasn't the look they wanted, Bo felt comfortable enough to check a play and feel confident in it. You don't want to be up there, should I check it, should I not? You want to be on the same page as the coach, and obviously if we can do that as a quarterback room, it's going to be more successful for the offense.
You mentioned Jake. What have you seen from him, and what does he bring to his room and this team?
Yeah, Jake is somebody I've grown up playing against. Played him in 7-on-7, saw him in high school a couple times. But he's somebody that's just going to work hard. He's not going to say much. He's a quick dude. But I think over this fall camp, people have definitely respected, and I was like, wow, who's that? Because obviously in spring he was kind of banged up. But he's just somebody that shows you, it doesn't matter how much adversity you go through. As long as you put your head down and work, it's going to be a positive outcome.
Do you tell any of your teammates like this was the man in Arizona?
Oh,
football?
I tell them, people are like, wow, he's got speed. I'm like, you guys understand, he was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, not just the state of Arizona, but national. He's somebody that is going to make a lot of explosive plays. I think our senior year in 4 games he had like 22 touchdowns or something like that. So to have 4 or 5 touchdowns a game is something remarkable, and I'm just excited for him to do it in front of his friends and family at our stadium.
Trent, do you feel like right now you're right where you want to be?
Yeah, I definitely think, there's always room for improvement. Obviously there are some throws that I've missed or some reads that I missed, but, that's all a part of growing as a quarterback and just, getting back into fall camp. But I definitely, I'm excited to get some more reps and, to start doing more scrimmages, making it more game-like. Obviously, practices are going to be scripted, but I love it when, when it's not scripted, you just play the game and it's just like a real Saturday night.
And finally, we had a chance to talk with Jaden Rashada.
About the conference, changing conferences.
Yeah.
How is that received? Is there any relief in kind of knowing that is over and decisions were made?
Yeah, it's pretty big deal. Football is still football, so but definitely looking forward to competing in a new conference, and that's a lot of has to do with our class, in the future. So that's something I was definitely excited about.
Jaden, where do you think you've made the most strides in your game since the spring?
I would say mentally and decision making, better feet work, and I still have a lot of work to do, and I'll continue to put in the work and just keep growing as a person and a player.
How's the speed of the game evolved for you now? You having the reps in spring and now through 1 week of fall camp?
Yeah, it's slowing down, but football is still football, but it's slowing down, and I'm just trying to get better.
How's the dynamic work with you and the other quarterbacks? It looks like you're supporting each other, cheering for each other, but also the competition to play.
Yeah, we're all rooting for each other, at least. I think we're all rooting for each other, and that's what happens when you have a good group of teammates. You're not really selfish, just worried about winning, and just rooting for each other.
Take us through this nice touchdown pass you had in practice.
Oh yeah, that was a verse call, so just move the safety with my eyes and work back to my field, and worked out in my favor. Just drove the ball downfield in the end zone. But yeah, just playing football and having fun with it.
Jen, how has your level of comfort evolved during this first week with audibles and your checks?
Yeah, shoot, I'm getting way more comfortable every single day. So I'd say it definitely has jumped dramatically since spring ball, and just if I could keep climbing and keep growing as a player, that's all that matters.
Is there something that you're most proud of in your transition to ASU to this point that you're kind of patting yourself on the back for?
No pats on the back, but I'm just happy to be here, happy to be surrounded by a good group of teammates and coaches, and just growth. Growth is what's most important. So when you're growing as a person and a player, that's just what it's about.
And then how much more comfortable are you feeling, I mean, with that growth, like just in the offense and what Coach Dillingham wants you to get done?
Yeah, way more comfortable, you know, like I'm way more comfortable now, you know, I have days where I'm hard on myself and hold myself to a certain standard, but I mean, it'll all pay off, you know, someday. You know, it's just about timing and when. But, yeah.
What are some of those areas that you had a lot of growth in so far in this first week?
I would say just being comfortable, you know, just playing football, not overthinking, letting the game come to you, taking what they give you.
What's it been like competing against your brother now on the practice field?
I don't like him out there, but we talk about it at the end of our days. Yeah, he got me the other day. If you guys seen that, I was ready to tackle him, but yeah, he got me. But you know, it's pretty fun competing with my brother. You know, I definitely don't see him as my brother out there on the football field. You know, but yeah, it's happy to see him make plays. You know, when I'm not in, and stuff like that.
Will y'all watch film together just to kind of go over?
Yeah, sometimes we will, or sometimes like he'll have me explain, hey, what is this? And I'll ask the same thing, you know, to hear from a defense perspective. So, you know, say that's how we communicate a little bit when it comes to football. But, you know, mostly just like how we handle situations, you know, when things do go our way, when things don't go our way. You know, that's mostly what it's like having a brother on the team. You know, he's there, he sees it all, but yeah. Oh my gosh.
Jaden, this time next week you'll be up in Payson at Camp T. What have you heard about that experience? What are you anticipating?
I heard a lot about it, but I'm just looking forward to it. You know, I've never been. I think it's definitely a blessing, you know, that people don't really look at. I know a lot of people who like would die to go up to Camp T and play football up there. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. You know, like maybe the dorms is the best situation, but it's how you bind as teammates and come together, you know, and got to go through a little bit of adversity and do things you don't like together.
Who's have the hardest time putting down their phone?
Oh, Jalen Conyers.
What about
podcast man?
Who's most likely to be scared of spiders?
Most likely to be scared of spiders? Ooh, I would say I would say like Leaf. Leaf might, you know, like the lineman. I feel like the lineman would be scared of spiders.
You gonna join Clayton on his hunt for snakes?
No. He has like 7-8 reptiles, if you guys haven't known that yet, but he's crazy. Not my type of, I hate snakes.
Then what ice cream are you running to go get?
Oh, I already ate it, but usually I would get strawberry shortcake, but it was hot today, so I got like the orange dream. Can't go wrong, a little refreshing.